Rhodes with Oath Keepers, and on the phone right now I'm talking to John Karriman from Missouri. John is a police academy instructor there in Missouri, and also one of our leaders in southern Missouri. And I actually have Missouri point of contact, but he was there at Ferguson last year, and is now going to be spearheading the forming of a CPT within Ferguson and getting the people in Ferguson organized to take care of their own security. And John, you work for which academy do you teach at?
I've been at Missouri Southern State University's Regional Police Academy since 1981.
And you're one of their full-time. You teach defensive tactics, is that correct?
I do. I've got them probably for quite a bit more than the rest of the instructors, getting them versed in various use of force considerations. One of the things I get out to them is right out of the chute. First session with them is a motto I want for them to carry with them all of their career, and it goes something like this: treat them like family till you can't. And oftentimes I see them get out on the street, and as soon as they're done with their field training, they slip into this, I don't know, it's just another mode of thinking where they're not out there being the protectors and servers that we've designed them to be.
And so you've seen a shift in the mindset in the law enforcement or policing community over the last few decades?
Things have slowly deteriorated over time as far as some of the quality of the individuals we get coming into law enforcement. In any cross-section of society, you're going to have bullies and cowards and sloths and dullards and such. But in law enforcement, generally, that it weeds itself out. But we all know that there is a brotherhood of silence. We've seen solidarity and things such as blue flu and things like that. But they tend to stick together. They take serious, for the most part, the concept of fraternity and brotherhood.
Right, but then that comes to the point of turning a blind eye to abusive behavior by fellow officers, doesn't it?
It does, and it's entrenched. There is more of a closed mouth, look out for each other mentality than there was with the mob. They slowly caved on each other and kind of turned in on itself. But police officers, for the most part, they attempt to take care of themselves. They're conditioned because of the job and how they're viewed by society. They're almost painted into a corner by others, and they take on that mantle, and it becomes us versus them. And having done the job, I slipped into it myself. And when my blinders were ripped off, it was a painful thing. The system is fraught with cronyism in the legal system. Being an attorney, you know what I'm talking about. It's oftentimes you win this week, I win next week, and they see a number of their cases kicked, and it grinds on them. A lot of good people end up leaving the ranks to do other things because they don't think that they are making a difference, and when in effect they truly are.
Well, we talked earlier about there's been a what I would call a losing of credibility and a losing of the hearts and minds of the people, and it's not just in the black communities, but it's also across the country. Too many, like the retired New York police officer Serpico said, it shouldn't be that the bad cops fear the good cops, and until that happens, we're not going to see a change, and it's not that way. It's the bad cops get away with it because the good cops don't turn them in, don't arrest them, don't stop them. And because of that, they're losing credibility.
Yes. Exactly. They when they fail to respond, they're giving it their tacit approval, and that's what it reaches to the highest office as far as statements made off the cuff about things that rarely matter, and then turning a blind eye to serious matters, particularly when it involves racial tensions, which is the issue here. And
now what do you see going on in Ferguson? What's your take on that?
Well, what we've seen starting last year was the troublemakers were coming from outside the area. They were traveling across the river. They were being paid to agitate. And if a person will go back and look at old film, they'll be able to see these characters showing up all across the nation, actually being paid to travel and agitate, or stay in an area for months on end and continue that anger and fanning the flames of resentment.
So the same one showed up at Baltimore and showed up down in South Carolina after the shooting there?
They certainly did. I recognized one of their voices from hollering in the background in another film from another part of the country, and there they were right in front of me. And one of the what was interesting last time I was up was one of the young men that was taken off on a tirade about our mere presence was schooled by one of the shop owners that we'd protected last year. And he came up with his head bowed and he says, "Sir, I owe you an apology." And, it really, I can't say it warmed my heart, but that's what it takes is for the community itself to step up and say, no, these men are not this and they're not that. This is who they are. They love their fellow man. And, that's the message we're trying to get out there.
Now, you were there last year, along with Sam Andrews and all the other guys, up on the rooftops and defending the whole block of buildings, which included apartments.
Right.
And what's kind of disturbing to me is to watch how the media entirely ignores that and acts as though just recently when you guys deployed out to protect the InfoWars crew. And you also had a request, by the way, folks should know, you had requests this last time, just this last few weeks, of protection for local businesses. Is that right?
The narrative with the mainstream media is to paint us as villains, and it's very difficult for them to do when the numbers tell the truth. And inflammatory comments by them, using buzzwords, trying to paint pictures, it falls on its butt when you look at what exactly happened. When we showed up last year as well as this year, things calmed down. Arrests this year, when we were on the street, there were none. There was no gunfire. The police calmed down. I'm sure you're going to have people in the crowd shouting things, but they're doing it out of ignorance, or they're actually getting paid to do so. The people themselves.
What do you attribute that to? The fact when you guys showed up, things kind of quieted down.
They knew what we were about. They knew that we were all business, and they also knew that we were much on the side of them to peacefully express themselves as we would anybody else. Everybody has a right to express themselves, to have an opinion, but we all know that opinion should be based on the truth and on facts. And they were calm and content in knowing that we were there for them last year, and we actually protected them, not just buildings with people inside of it, but people on the street. There was a number of saves last year, and they were very grateful. Now, you were
told that by a lot of the black folks that lived there, that if they were to do the exact same thing you guys are doing, open carrying, that they'd be shot. Is that right?
Right. That's a good point. And when that comment was made that we couldn't do that, I said, well, you did last year. There was a row of buildings that was protected by young black men that were packing carbines, and they were left alone. We, on the other hand, actually trained professionals, were harassed by law enforcement.
Right. So there's an element of mistaken belief on that. There were young men who guarded and protected businesses in Ferguson, and more power to them. And more of them happened this year, right?
Yes, and it's overlooked. It's rarely reported, but that's exactly what took place. And whereas we have not only received the training, but we've advanced our training to the point where we ourselves are trainers. And we were set upon by law enforcement instead of the other way around, them being concerned about criminal activity. They were told to stand down. That's what caused us to roll out and do what we did last year. Was we gave the authorities, the folks that we've elected and paid to do various things, we gave them the opportunity to do the right thing, and they did not.
Well, this what we're doing now, though, is to make it very clear to people that the people of Ferguson have a right to carry. We are going to organize an open carry event, either a march or a rally. But the real point I want to make about that is that our goal is to see a Ferguson CPT stand up, a Ferguson community preparedness team made up of the locals to take care of themselves and guard their own neighborhoods. And that way they are taking care of their own security, removing the thugs from their community.
Yes.
We just had a 9-year-old girl killed in a drive-by, and frankly, that's on the hands of the locals, not on the cops. They need to take care of their own security and take out the trash, right?
I feel a little bit like a LERP going into another area. Yes, it's part of my state, but at the same time, it's not my culture. But at the same time, they are my fellow man, and I'm concerned about their ability to fend for themselves and do the right thing. And part of that is training. I've got a boatload of folks here in the southwest corner of the state that are capable of training folks. What I would like to see is the folks from the area that have the skill sets, that have the instructor certifications to step up and assist in this project.
Well, we'd also like to see the local veterans. I keep asking, where are the veterans of Ferguson? How come they're not stepping up? And so with your assistance, what we're going to do, so the folks know, is we're going to bring in some Oath Keeper veterans who are Black Oath Keeper veterans to help you organize a town hall meeting and find these veterans of Ferguson, go door to door and knock on the doors and say, turn out, guys. Come on out. Let's get your act together. And John Karriman and the rest of the guys in southern Missouri will help you organize and train up and get yourselves squared away so you can take care of your own neighborhoods.
That's just it. We hope to get an outpouring from the area and meet at the community center or one of the VF halls or even a church basement and get them to participate in their own community. And we'll see how it turns out. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
And one of the benefits of doing that is that if they're taking care of it themselves, there's less of a reason or excuse for a heavy police presence in their neighborhoods. And so it's two go together. If you don't want the cops coming in and sticking their nose in your neighborhoods, then you need to take care of yourself because you can't have
Exactly. Otherwise, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's just about voicing all kinds of anger about something that you have an opportunity to help fix, and we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the best.
Now, there is still that reality of the fact that Chief Belmer and others within his department clearly don't respect either the First or the Second Amendment. You want to speak to that?
Well, I do. I think there's plenty of video evidence of what his mindset is, and it amounts to they'll take care of it after the fact. It doesn't matter what the law says. What they feel is expedient, they will do. And if that violates the law or the Constitution, they don't care. They seem to think that is their due. And that's when problems occur, is when people know that they're absolutely right and another person thinks that it absolutely doesn't matter. And that's what we slowly descended to as a country, is this lack of knowledge on the part of the people to stand up for themselves and say, no, you're out of line. This is called overreach, and you need to settle down, or otherwise you'll be removed from office. But that's what happens. Power tends to go to a person's head.
And something I've seen also is that in reaction to the intentional divide and conquer along racial lines, is sadly you see a lot of conservatives who will label everybody in Ferguson as a thug, even though we both know that's not true because we've been on the ground and seen the folks there. There are a lot of good people there. So we have to fight against that. People out there, if you're pro-gun and pro-Constitution, you better stand up for the rights of every American.
That's right. That's right.
Keep and bear arms as long as they're responsible and as long as they're doing it in the spirit of defense of lives, property, and their community.
There you go. Our protection of property and pursuit of happiness. I had a strange incident. One of the Black Panthers came up, and he was all masked up to hide his identity in case he decided to engage in activities where he didn't want his identity known. I lifted my hat up off my head and say, "This is who I am." I said, "Take your mask off." And I could tell his facial expression changed under his kerchief. It was a smile, and he disappeared. And the next time I saw him, he patted this young man on the shoulders from behind and motioned him over. The young man went over and he stuck his hand out. He said, my uncle wanted me to meet a real man. And anyway, he acted very reverent. I looked over and one of the NBPs, he nodded. It was just kind of a mutual respect thing. It's sad that we have been fragmented to the point where we think we need to beat each other's throat, when the fact remains we're all under the thumb. We all have been experiencing a more tightening of this militarized police state that people, it's like the frog in the pot. They're not aware of it. If a person had been in a coma and woke up some, say, 10 years later even, they would be appalled. I see where this is headed, where it's gone historically, and that is why we speak up, because we know that when people begin to overreach and usurp their authority, that what comes next is not pleasant.
And we're bad for all of us, and that's what I always worry about, is that, like with Black Lives Matter, every life matters, and I understand their anger, but if they make it only about Black lives, they're just furthering that division along racial lines. The abuse that's going on in this country is across the board. It's being done to all of us. Yes,
I was proud of this. Peggy Hubbard speaking up. This young 9-year-old was shot, and everybody was still. They wanted to lament the fact that a thug died a thug's death instead of that this poor young girl was the victim of black violence as well. It's terrible, and it reaches across all socioeconomic strata, and it's sad that people want to pick and choose what they think is worth getting their panties in a bunch about. You know, a young innocent life like that, it's no excuse. It missed the point with everybody.
Well, I look forward to meeting you in person finally, and like I said, we don't even know who our members are who are black. I know a few of them, just because I know them, personally, but we never ask our membership to identify along racial lines. We could care less.
Right.
But we understand it's better for us to send black people. What's that?
It's that exactly. We didn't think of that as even a consideration. We served with them in military and law enforcement as first responders, and at a point we're colorblind. We were not stuck in any kind of stereotypical imagery, because they held their own and they stood their ground, and they worked and fought beside us, and we're part of this human family, and that's what it's about. And hopefully this will resonate with the veterans around the Ferguson area, and I hope they step up.
Well, we're going to have to counter the criticism that we're outsiders, don't understand. We're going to go out and find our Black Oath Keeper veterans and bring them in, just for that purpose.
It was almost a joke on my part, but one of them said, "Hey, we're the Black Oath Keepers," when we were there, and all I said was they're working, and it was kind of an inside joke, but it smacked of a little bit of racism, but it was true. I knew a couple of folks from back home, and they were tied up. Otherwise, they'd have been right there beside us.
Right. Well, they'll be there. I'm bringing them in. So we look forward to seeing you guys down there, and I just want to make sure folks understand this will be done right. And the point is for the good people of Ferguson, not the thugs, not the looters, and not the rioters, but the good folks, stand-up people of Ferguson, be coming together, getting trained by us, and with us next to them, we'll be exercising their rights. So, John, hats off to you, and thanks for your help there.
Well, and you as well, and long live the Republic.
Amen. Long live the Republic. Okay, folks, that's us from Oath Keepers signing out. Look for more updates on Ferguson coming up. John is taking the lead down there. He's our point of contact there now. And you can see him, you'll be seeing him all over the news, I'm sure, as they do this Open Carry March. Thanks a lot.